إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, to proceed, to continue our explanation of the book al-Ajrumiyyah, written by the Imam Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Dawud as-Sanhajee, who died in the year 1323, alayhi rahmatullahi. And in our previous lesson, we introduced the subject of the importance and the benefit of learning the grammar of the Arabic language. And we mentioned it relates to two important principles. The first of them being, yeah, Muhammad?
Speaking perfectly.
Right. Sawnul lisani anil khata'i fil kalami, to protect the tongue from making a mistake during speech. So that's the first great benefit of learning the grammar of the Arabic language. The second, which follows on from that, after we have an understanding of grammar, is
understanding the Quran.
Right. Fahmul Qur'ani wa sunnati. And that is of extreme importance for the reason that our Lord Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed Al-Quran was for the purpose of understanding and hidayah, guidance. As we mentioned, numerous ayat in Al-Quran which indicates that Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed it in order to guide mankind. So for example, at the beginning in Surah Al-Baqarah, we read, right, everybody knows that ayah. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Everybody reads that ayah, right? But most of the people are unaware of its meaning or its purpose or that which it leads to. So from the beginning of Al-Quran to the middle of Al-Quran, the surah that we all recite on Friday, which is Al-Kahf, at the beginning of Surah Al-Kahf, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihil kitab ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدن ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا. So the very beginning of Surah Al-Kahf, which is in the middle of Al-Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned again the purpose of the revelation of the book, that it is one that contains no deviation, it is upright, and that it gives glad tidings to the believers who perform righteous actions that they will have an excellent reward, meaning al-Jannah, makithina fihi abada, and they will remain therein forever. And then right at the end, in Surah Al-Ahqaf, Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفْرٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. And remember when we sent a group of jinn to you, when we sent a group of jinn to you, يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, يَسْتَمِعُونَ, in order to listen to Al-Qur'an. فَلَمَّا حَضَرُوهُ, when they attended, قَالُوا أَنصِتُوا, they said, listen, be silent and listen. فَلَمَّا قُضِيَ وَلُّوا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ مُنْذِرِينَ, and when it was completed, what did they do? They returned back to their people, mundirin. Mundirin here is al-halu. The state that they returned back to their people was mundirin, warning them. That's what they did. When they heard Al-Quran and they understood it, what did they do? They returned back to their people, mundirin. قالوا يا قومنا إنا سمعنا كتابا أنزل من بعد موسى. They said, oh, our people, we have heard a book that's been revealed after Musa, مصدقا لما بين يديه. It's an affirmation of that which came before it. يهدي إلى الحق, it guides to al-haq, the truth. وإلى طريق مستقيم, and to the straight path. That's what they did after understanding, listening and understanding Al-Quran, the words of Allah Azza wa Jalla. They returned back to their people, mundareen, which is our purpose. Once we understand Al-Quran and the Sunnah, that we return back to our people, mundareen, because indeed this ummah has the greatest need in this time to act in accordance with the book and the Sunnah. So in today's lesson we begin the main text of the book al-Ajrumiyyah. So where do we begin, Ya Muhammad? Iqra, read it.
Al-kalamu
Kalamu
huwa al-lafzu
huwa al-lafzu
al-lafzul murakkabun al-murakkabu
al-mufidu بالوضع حسن. قال المؤلف, so the mu'allif Abu Abdullah, he mentioned al-kalamu. Al-kalamu is the speech. Huwa al-lafdhu, it is al-lafdhu. And all of these terms we're going to explain. Al-murakkabu, al-mufidu bil-wad'i. Right? Now, al-kalamu is the speech. Al-lafdhu relates to what is pronounced upon the tongue. Al-murakkabu is that which is connected together. Al-mufidu is that which is beneficial. Bil-wad'i in the Arabic language. First point to note, that the text of al-Ajrumiyyah is short. Therefore, it's highly recommended and encouraged to memorize it. That's a good practice, to memorize short texts to begin with. However, in saying that, don't concentrate on memorizing and exert your efforts to memorize the words of creation at the expense of the words of the Creator. Meaning, don't concentrate upon memorizing something written by a human being and then neglect to memorize that which the Creator, Rabbul Alameen, revealed to mankind. Rather, you should be doing both. And this is an advice to us all. Right? Don't neglect that, because one will assist and help the other. Memorizing Al-Quran will help you to memorize and learn An-Nahu, and memorizing Al-Ajrumiyyah will encourage you and help you to memorize Al-Quran. The second point to note is that these terms, al-kalamu and al-lafdhu and al-murakkabu, al-mufidu, al-wad'u. These are what we call al-mustalahatu. Al-mustalahatu. Singular, mustalahun. And in English we use the term technical language or a technical word, right, for al-mustalahatu. So in Arabic it's al-mustalahu singular, al-mustalahatu plural. In English the equivalent is technical terminology, right? So every what they say in Arabic, that every fannun min al-fanuni, every type of knowledge or subject has its own particular terminology that relates to it, right? So if we were to define that in Arabic, they said mattafaqa alayhi ahlu fannin min kulli fanunin, that the mustalahatu, the technical terminology, generally is that which has been agreed upon by the people of that particular subject, right? So here, when we talk about these terms, we are talking about terms that have been agreed upon by the grammarians, and it relates to Arabic grammar, and that might not necessarily be its usage either in Al-Quran or the general Arabic language. And that's important to note. And where it differs, we'll mention it. So we begin with al-kalamu, that relates to speech. How do the grammarians, or how did Ibn Ajrum, rahimahullah, describe al-kalam? He said, huwa. Huwa is damirun muttasilun or munfasilun. Munfasilun. Ahsanta ya anamul haq. It's munfasilun, isn't it? Huwa, it. Al-lafdhu is al-lafdhu. Al-lafdhu is that which is pronounced upon the tongue. Right? So where do we begin therefore? We begin with as-sawtu. This is where we're going to begin. As-sawtu. What does as-sawtu mean? It's used to refer to a voice, but generally in Arabic it means the sound or a sound, right? So when you hear a sound, we refer to that as as-sawtu, right? So they said that as-sawtu kullu ma yasma'u, right? Kullu ma yasma'u. So everything that is heard, so whether we speak or we make any other kind of sound, or something else makes a sound, like the rattling of something in your pocket, or one object moving against another, or an accident, one car hitting another, all of that is referred to as as-sawtu, right? And as-sawtu, it can therefore be two types. Either it can be one which comes from your tongue, right, that is comprised of what we call al-hurufu wal-harakat in Arabic. So either it is al-lafdhu that emanates from our tongue, that will comprise of two things. Al-hurufu, the letters of the Arabic language, and al-harakatu, right? Because remember, in order to articulate the word for a book in Arabic, this is how we do it, right? We say kitabun, right, Muhammad and al-Haq? We know this. Now kitabun is comprised of two types of markings, isn't it? The first is the kaf and the ta and the alif and the ba. They are called al-hurufu And the Arabic language comprises of 29 haruf or letters. Right? Although there's a difference of opinion regarding that, but generally speaking, there are 29. So the first is al-haruf. Al-harufu, which we know. However, in order to express or articulate a word in Arabic, we need more than just haruf. Do we not?
Yeah.
We need something else called al-harakat. Al-harakatu. What are al-harakatu? Like the kasratun, and like the fathatun, and like tanweenu dammin, and similarly tanweenu fathin, and similarly tanweenu kasrin. All of these are al-harakat, and in order to articulate a word, first we express the letter harfun min al-harufi, then it will have a particular harakaton on it that will determine how it is pronounced. In English, we have something called consonants and vowels. In Arabic, we have al-harufu and harakatu. Right? So, from as-sawtu, we can have al-lafdhu, which comprises of al-harufu and al-harakat. Right? But also, we can have from as-sawtu al-lafdhu that does not comprise of that. Why is that? Because, as we mentioned, we'll say that this is with al-huruf. This is bila huruf. That means without. Right? So, what is al-lafdhu without al-huruf? Like the braying of a donkey, like the barking of a dog, right? And any other sound which is made. Now, what's interesting, we have an ayah in Al-Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla makes reference to as-sawtu that is of both types. Does anyone know that ayah? It's in Surah Luqman. Right? In Surah Luqman, where Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned, وَإِذْ قَالَ لُقْمَانُ لِبْنِهِ وَهُوَ يَعِظُهُ يَا بُنَيَّ لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ. Remember when Luqman alayhi salam, he advised and counseled his son, Ya bunayya, O my son, La tushrik billah, do not commit shirk with Allah, فَإِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Because indeed shirk is a manifest oppression. It's a grave matter. Towards the end, in fact, the last ayah on that page, right, at the end, the final piece of advice is to his son, وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشْيِكَ واغضض من صوتك. واقصد في مشيك, which means واقصد في مشيك, be moderate في مشيك. That word you recognize, right?
Walking.
Your walk. Right, that's the masdar. Mashyun is the masdar of masha. Waqsid fi mashika, be moderate in your walking. Waghdud, waghdud from ghadda means a lower. Waghdud min sawtika, your voice, right? Then Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned فَإِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ لَصَوْتُ الْحَمِيرِ. This is a nice ayah, isn't it, Ya Muhammad? Why? Because it illustrates this principle. Which principle? That a sawtu can comprise of al-lafdhu, which comprises of al-harufu, and al-lafdhu, which is without al-haruf. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَقْصِدْ فِي مَشِكَ وَغْضُضْ مِنْ صَوْتِكَ, be moderate in your walking and lower your voice. فَإِنَّ أَنْكَرَ الْأَصْوَاتِ, because indeed ankara means the most reprehensible. Al-aswati, of sounds. La-sawtul hamiri is the brain, well, we're not going to say brain because brain isn't used, but that's what's understood, because that's the sawtul hamiri, isn't it? The sawtul hamiri, the salt produced by al-hamiru, the donkey, is the brain of it. So note that here salt is used to refer to two types of a lafz. The first is waghdud min sawtika, meaning your speech or your words relating to a human being. Right? The second type of salt is connected to al-hamir. So Allah Azza wa Jalla used a salt to refer to both a human and a donkey. Right? Similarly, the ayah in Surah Al-Hujurat, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawtin nabi. Or you who believe, do not raise your voices, your salt, فوق صوت النبي, over the voice of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So, very quickly, if we look at the i'rab of this ayah, waqsid, aqsid is fi'lu amrin, right? Mabniyun ala sakun. Fa'iluhu, its fa'il is mustatir, taqdiruhu anta. في مشي is جار ومجرور وهو مضاف. كا is ضمير متصل مبني على الفتح وهو مضاف إليه. Right? وَغْضُضْ من صوتك is the same, isn't it? وَغْضُض فعل أمر مبني على السكون. من is جار صوتك مجرور. كا again ضمير متصل مبني على الفتح وهو مضاف إليه. فإن is حرف مشبه بالفعل. What does inna enter upon?
Noun and
yeah. Not just a noun, Ya Muhammad. Inna enters upon what type of jumla? Jumlatul ismiyya. What does it do to al-jumlatul ismiyya?
It makes it marfu. No.
تنسب المبتدا وترفع الخبر. Right? It makes mansub al-mubtada. Look, it's made it mansub. And that it should be ankaru. But it is ankara. Why? Because inna is enter upon it. Al-aswat. Ankara. What is al-aswat here? Al-aswati.
It's an idafa.
Good, very good, mashallah. It's an idafa, isn't it? Mudafun ilayhi. Then we have a la. La is called lam al-muzhalaqatu or lam al-tawqid for emphasis. For indeed, the most reprehensible of sounds is indeed sawt, sawtul hamiri. Sawt is the
Sound.
now grammatically
Ismu No.
It isn't ismun marfu'un. Why is it? Mudafun. Wa al-hamiri is mudafun ilayhi, right? If you didn't understand all of that, you will, insha'Allah ta'ala. So, we begin with as-sawtu. We know it's of two types. Al-lafdhu, which is with al-harufu, and al-lafdhu, which is without al-harufu, which we just demonstrated in that ayah. Right? Then, so we have al-lafdh. Then what do we have next? Al-murakkabu. Right? Al-murakkabu, that which is connected. Right? So, how do we form al-lafdhu with al-haruf? Well, a single word in Arabic is called kalimatun. What is kalimatun? A single word comprised of?
Letters, harufs.
Al-harufu wa ya Muhammad?
Because you need harufs to make.
And what else do we need?
Harakat.
Al-harakatu. So we say that al-kalimatu, right? Nurakkibu al-kalimata min al-harufi wal-harakati. Right? Nurakkibu. Rakkaba is the fi'lun from al-murakkabu, right? Or al-murakkabu is based upon rakkaba. So, nurakkibu al-kalimata or kalimatan min al-harufi wal-harakati, right? But in grammar, in Arabic grammar, al-murakkabu means comprising of two or more words. It has to be comprised of two or more words. So we can have al-lafdhu now, which is al-murakkabu. Al-murakkabu, meaning it comprises of kalimatani أو أكثر. Right? So we can have that which is al-murakkabu, something comprising of two words or more than that. And that is what is considered to be al-murakkabu. So where you have two or more words, that is considered to be al-murakkabu. Right? But of course, we can have al-lafdhu, which is not al-murakkabu. غير al-murakkabi. Why would it be غير al-murakkabi?
If it's a single word?
Good, ya Muhammad. Because it's a single word, isn't it? For example, kitabun. Is kitabun, does that comprise of kalimatani or akthar? No. It's just a single kalimatun. Right? That's all it is. And on this point to note that here is an example where in grammar the definition of kalimatun is different to the definition of kalimatun as used in Al-Quran. It's different. Because in Al-Quran Allah Azza wa Jalla uses kalimatun to refer to a sentence. Like the ayah that we mentioned, we're speaking at the beginning of Surah Al-Kahf. وَيُنْذِرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. And it warns those people who said that Allah has taken a son. مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ وَلَا لِآبَائِهِمْ. They have no knowledge of that. There's no evidence for that, nor do their forefathers. Then what did Allah Azza wa Jalla say? كَبُرَتْ كَلِمَةً تَخْرُجُ مِنْ أَفْوَاهِهِمْ إِنْ يَقُولُونَ إِلَّا كَذِبًا. kaburat kalimatan. How great or severe. Kalimatan is that word. تخرج من أفواههم, that exits from their mouths. But what is used there? Is it kalaman? No, it's kalimatan. So we know that kalimatan in Al-Quran is used in that ayah, and the ayah in Surah Al-Mu'minun, to indicate what?
Sentence.
A sentence. But in grammar, it's not. In grammar, it literally refers to a word. And we know that it can be al-murakkabu, which means it comprises of two words or more, or it's ghayrul murakkab. It's not al-murakkab because it's qalamun, jidarun, babun. But there is a caveat.